Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fear the Talking Heads. I have a very special guest with me today. I'm so excited that Kat has decided to join me on this episode because I really want to raise awareness that ScareFest Weekend has a sign language interpreter there for you at the panels, usually on the same stage as Joe Louis. They're kind of like a little comedy act in between panels, really. So, Kat, thank you so much for taking the time today. And I just wanted to talk to you about movies that you love in the horror genre, as well as what brought you to ScareFest, how long you've been at ScareFest volunteering, and just give everyone this opportunity to get to know you before the big event next month.
Okay, hello everyone. Let's see where to start. I started interpreting volunteering for ScareFest back in 2018. I attended my very first ScareFest 2017, and how I got involved with that is my sister. My sister loved to go to the ScareFest conventions and Comic Cons, and I've never been to one. I've been to many other Comic Cons, but not ScareFest. And I just didn't know that year, I just didn't know for sure if I should go or not. And she really laid in the works and encouraged me and got me to come along with her. And I loved it. Once I got to ScareFest, it was amazing. And my little niece, well, now she's not little anymore, but back then, my little niece just loved everything about it. They had what do you call that dragon? How to Train Your Dragon. But what was the name of the dragon? I can't think of it off the top of my head. But they had a life-size dragon for you could get pictures with. And my niece, that was her favorite part. That was her favorite thing. So it was amazing for all ages. And I saw that, and the thought in the back of my mind was, there's no interpreters. And I did run into a deaf fella there while just mingling around, and I saw him signing, and I approached him and I started signing with him. And he's saying, yeah, he attends Comic Cons all the time and there are no interpreters. So I kind of braved myself into trying to figure out who was in charge of ScareFest, who I can approach. And when I finally did ask, I said, hey, look, here's a need, and I'm willing to fill it. Um, I used to be married to a deaf man and go to Comic Cons with him. And I would end up interpreting rather than enjoying and participating in the Comic Con myself. So this is my gift to the deaf and hard of hearing community, so that way their loved ones can participate and interacting with their favorite celebrities in this genre.
Okay, so one thing that I love about Kat is if you go to some other shows, they'll make an announcement at the beginning of each panel and they'll say, hey, we have an interpreter here. Is there anyone out there that needs an interpreter? But with Kat, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kat, but you've been up there for every panel typically that Joe Louis is at, regardless of if someone raises their hand to say, I'm hard of hearing or from the deaf community. So all of us get to experience seeing Kat doing this beautiful sign language, which I feel is amazing. And now, if someone from the hearing community were to wonder, with all of the expressiveness in your face while you're signing, tell the audience how important that is to emote to the non-hearing community and why that's so big of a part of sign language.
Sign language actually has a different grammar structure, and it's, as you can tell, is very visual. So a lot of the expressions that you see on my face uh, shows the emotion and what is being said, but it also can show the adjectives. For example, when the eyebrows go up, a lot of times you do that and it shows you're asking a question. There's other times too, you're asking a different type of question, your eyebrows may go down. So every kind of adjective or emotion or anything is placed on the face. And that's why you'll see me. And a lot of times I might add a little too much expression because I did performing arts back when I was in high school and in college, and I just incorporate it into my signs.
And
Okay.
something else that someone might not realize is, and I found this out from you actually in discussing it, I think a week or two ago, is you can't talk and sign at the same time without losing some of that in translation, right?
Right. I mean, I can do it. I've done it lazily in the past where it's called simcomming, when you're voicing and signing at the same time. But because of the syntax and because of the grammar, structure is very different. One or both of the languages will lose the message. Um, it'll be same as like a word garbage. Like we're sitting here talking and then my mind goes blank and I'm like, that could happen because my mind is trying to process both languages at the same time. So a lot of times the native language, which mine would be the hearing English version, um, will sound halfway decent, but it may be missing some cues. Whereas the ASL language, because it's my second language, will be complete word garbage. And the
Very
deaf will be
choppy.
like, what?
And you said that you were married to someone or just with someone, dating someone in the past that was non-hearing.
Yes, I was married for 10 years to a profoundly deaf man whose native language was sign language. And I ended up being his personal interpreter during that 10-year marriage, which made me pretty much proficient with the language. They say 10 years of learning language and doing language makes you proficient. And it was incorporated with in my relationship with him 24/7. He would have me interpreting news channels. If there was no closed captioning, I would sit next to the TV and interpret movies or TV shows. Um, Anything that he needed me to, I was there and I ended up being his interpreter. Now, due to that, the marriage wasn't quite healthy because I was more of his personal interpreter than his sweetheart. And the marriage did not last. We lasted for about 10 years. But I always tell people that I don't regret it because being married to him for those 10 years and having that experience gave me a beautiful language and it also gave me a career out of it. So looking back on that, I'm very much appreciative of having that.
Is there a panel that was especially memorable for you to interpret at ScareFest and why?
Yes. There's actually several panels that were memorable to me. The first one is a running joke because this one was not at ScareFest, but is with Joe Lewis. And as you know, Joe Lewis is a character of all of its own. And it was a Smallville panel. I don't know if you're familiar with Superman or the Smallville TV show, but they had several of the actors from that show. And one of them was Michael Rosenbaum, who played Lex Luthor. And as I was interpreting on the stage, he kept looking over at me. And finally, he paused everything and said, hold on, people, there's an interpreter here on stage with us. I love this. Let's see what happens. So he started saying and talking some of the things, trivia concerning the show. But in the middle of it, all of a sudden, he would just say, diarrhea, 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 slow diarrhea, fast diarrhea, explosive diarrhea. And ever since then, it's been a running joke between me and Joe and the audience. And every single Scarefest and other Comic Cons I have interpreted, the audience remembers that, and the audience themselves will sign to me when they see me diarrhea. Yeah. And then let's see, as far as Scarefest goes, one of my memorable ones would be with, for a different reason, obviously, but it was last year, the Jaws panel. And to be able to interpret for Richard Dreyfuss and be on the same stage with him was awe inspiring. And I loved every moment of that. And I know that was Joe's favorite panel too, but he can't be the only one that chooses that as his favorite panel. And I know he also likes George Romero. I know all this because I interpret everything every year. But yeah, so that was something else. And there was a panel I was actually looking forward to this year. And I know you're going to list them later on, but it's not going to happen. So I'm going to give it an honorable mention. But what I was really looking forward to was one of my favorite scare queen actresses named Lynn Shay. She was involved in this Insidious and many, many others. She was involved, her and Robert England have a very close friendship outside of being coworkers, um, and have done movies together. And she was the one that I, for years, have been wanting to somehow at least just be in proximity next to her to interpret for her. And she had to cancel this year. Yay, because of Insidious 6 is officially in the works. And so she had to drop Scarefest in order to be involved with that production. So I'm looking forward to that. But maybe someday I will be able to be on stage with Lynn Shay, and maybe she will even smile at me. Who knows? That's what I'm hoping on.
You mentioned Insidious, and I know from our conversations that that's probably your favorite franchise in the horror genre. But if someone wanted to come up to you in between panels, because there's usually about a 10 to 15 minute break, and if they wanted to say hello and kind of connect with you about horror movies, what would you say to them? Like, as far as talking different movies, are you more into the paranormal or the slashers, or what kind of subgenre could they find some common ground with you on?
Well, definitely hit it with the paranormal. I am all about the conjurings and the insidious, anything haunted or spooky. I love jump scares like that. I'm gotten more and more used to watching different parts of the horror genre. Uh, I would say, especially thanks to my deaf husband, who loved watching horror movies. Before, I never watched a lot of horror before meeting him. But with a deaf person, and especially him who is profoundly deaf, they never hear the creepy, spooky music right before, or the Micah Myers tone. And we all know with music makes it a lot of the times, makes the scary noises and everything that happens. And the big bang, shouting and all that, they don't hear that, most of them. But I love those type of movies. And oh, the one to watch is The Quiet Place. Let you know, I watched that with a former deaf student of mine. We went to the movies. I wasn't there as her interpreter, and we sat there watching it. And because there's sign language involved in the movie, that's cool. But she was able to point out things that I would totally miss out on. And there's one point where I was scared, where one of the characters was in the bathtub hiding, trying to be quiet while is in pain, labor pain, and there's a monster going up the stairs. If you go back and look at that scene, as the monster's going up the stairs, they trip over their monster toes and they catch the railing and they walk up a couple of steps with holding on to the railing. You and I know, and the deaf person, the deaf student that I had was the one that pointed this out. monsters don't hold on to railings. Come on. So, so watching with a deaf person is totally different. But yes, if you want to talk to me about that, spookiness is all about what I'm all about. I have watched other things, like recently watched something that was a slasher. One thing I don't like is body horror. I cannot like The Thing. I know a lot of people love The Thing. I don't love The Thing. I don't like the where the face is melting off and different things like that. What was another one? There was a movie that I watched with an ex-boyfriend and his brother, and it was called Sorry to Bother You. And it has Stephen, yeah, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Yeun, Yeun. He was Glenn on The Walking Dead, but he was portraying a different character in this movie. He wasn't even the main character. But I watched this with them because of that, and it turns out like there's some kind of drug that they're trying in the movie, and they are being deceived by the CEO guy, and this drug actually ends up turning them into horses. And there's one scene where this guy opens up a door and there's a whole locker room full of horses standing on their hind legs with towels wrapped around them. And they're like, "What's up, bro?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I had nightmares from that." I don't know why, but that just seeing the horses, the clay animation horses and stuff, it scared the daylight. I was going to say a different word, and I'm not allowed to say that on here, I don't think. But it scared the daylights out of me. I had like legit nightmares from that, from Body Melt. I don't know if you remember, if you know Body Melt. It's a older movie, Australian movie, I think, and it's where they drink health drinks, and something about the health drinks changes their bodies, and then all of a sudden, like some of them just explode, and different things. Like I can't do that. Horror stuff I can do, slasher movies, Scream, you name it, those kind of stuff. I love animatronics, like uh, Five Nights at Freddy's. But there's another one that did not get like the big limelight, and it happened during COVID. And it was a Nicolas Cage movie, Willy's Wonderland. And I loved it for the fact that Nicolas Cage never said a word in the movie. But it was all about animatronics, I guess, because ghosts possessed them, and that was cool. I was cool with that. I was fine with that. And I can do those. I just can't do the things where it's like all bleh, and your face is all melting and stuff. I can't do that.
So, since this channel does dive into some of the more underrated and underloved films, I was curious your take on a movie that wasn't necessarily a huge blockbuster hit, but really stuck with you that you would recommend to others.
I've been seeing a lot of those type of movies recently on Tubi, if you ever like stream channels. But it was like Nicolas Cage and what was it called?
Willy's
Willy's
Wonderland.
Wonderland. That one stuck with me. Yes, because I get in certain moods when I watch movies, and although hauntings and the spiritual realm and all that is my favorite go-to. Over the summer, Jaws was really big because of the 50th anniversary. And then Jurassic World came out with a new movie, and it made me do a whole marathon off of Peacock, streaming channel Peacock. They were showing all of the Jurassic Parks, all the way from back in my day in the 1990s, all the way to the most recent one. And I was in such an animatronic mood. So I also watched Five Nights at Freddy's, and then I just randomly found the Willy's Wonderland. I don't even remember what channel it was streaming on, but I watched it with Nicolas Cage not talking or saying a word and just acting through it. And that one did not get the limelight that I felt it deserved. I know it was produced during COVID shutdown. So, or like right before COVID shut down. So I think that was part of the reason why it wasn't as advertised. But that would be one I would say was the most recent one that I can actually think of to maybe say give it a chance.
So I have a list for you of which panels that Kat will most likely be at. If you're wanting to enjoy these panels and you're either hard of hearing or deaf and could use an extra hand or two in getting the most out of these panels with all of the storytelling. It's one of the best parts of the show, in my opinion. So I'm going to run through that while Kat signs this off to you. Friday, there's three of them. From 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, Return of the Living Dead. 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, Halloween 3. 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, you'll have Friday the 13th, Part 8. So there's a lot of reunions happening this year, and you don't want to miss out on all of the storytelling that comes with that. On Saturday, from noon to 1, Grimm. 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, that would be the Friday the 13th, Part 3. Very rare to see these guests at a show. You definitely want to get in on that one. 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, Juliette Lewis. Are you kidding me? That's going to be amazing. 4:30 to 5:45, Monster Squad. This is extended. These are normally around 45 minutes for these panels. Monster Squad is going to be huge. Very big panel there. Now, we haven't decided yet in talking with Kat if she's going to interpret for Bonehead Weekly at 7 o'clock. That will come later. We'll make sure that you get a chance to, go to that panel. I'll talk to her closer to the show and we'll get an answer for you on that. Sunday, there's four. Noon to 1 o'clock, Tom Savini. 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, Lost Boys. 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, Hellraiser. And the very last one so far, 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, Scream versus Scary Movie. Now, keep in mind, these times can change, but I just wanted to at least put kind of a preliminary out there so you know what to expect, where you can find Kat and Joe Lewis. If you like their little comedy show in between the panels, this could be for you. So, Kat, question for you. Since you were married to someone and helped him through these conventions, what would you recommend to others who are non-hearing how they can navigate through a convention if they've maybe just kind of been sitting in the background watching things in the ScareFest fan group, but not really knowing if it's for them? What kind of advice would you give to them?
Well, I say any hearing person that's saying this and they have deaf and hard of hearing friends, bring them, get them to come, talk about movies with them, write back and forth with them, and say, hey, look, there's a panels going on with celebrities that they may never, ever, ever get to meet, that they may actually sit in a room, and there's an interpreter that's going to be interpreting everything that's going to be said. They may even have a chance to raise their hand and ask a question to one of their favorite celebrities. And Kat would be there, me, I would be there to interpret their questions, their interactions. So that's one thing about it. Another one is um, I'm hoping down the road in the future, I might be able to have a team of interpreters with me that can go out to the main floor where all the booths are and where the celebrities are doing their autograph sections. And someone can go to the customer service table and say, hey, look, I'm deaf. I need an interpreter. Um, and they can use their walkie talkie, contact Joe or contact me to have me come out there or have another interpreter go out there to interpret that interaction between them and their favorite celebrity at the booth. Those are my suggestions. But most importantly, come to these things and enjoy them and tell your hearing family members that they don't have to work and they don't have to interpret everything, that there will be interpreters there that can help. I have two. One of my favorite movies is It. all of them, the one with Tim Curry and also the one with Bill Skarsgård. So it chapter one, it chapter two. I even have the thick book of it chapter one and two where it has all the pictures and the behind the scenes. Because I love everything behind, like the documentaries of behind the scenes. Like how do they choose actors? How do they film certain things? How do they do the makeup? How do they do the special effects? That's because of my performing arts background. I love, love, love that stuff. So anyway, so from it chapter one and it chapter two, I would say you'll float too. And then from the other movie, this is one that I watched with an ex-boyfriend, and I've said this line to him while we were both about to fall asleep, and it scared him so much that it's my favorite memory. But we were in bed, and all of a sudden I leaned over and I said, Baba do. Yeah, those are the two lines I would say. Yes.
Kat, you are so animated, of course, that I think that this could be kind of a fun thing during that 10 to 15-minute break. If someone wants to come up to the microphone and say, hey, can you do this line? Can you sign this line for me?
I would be happy to as long as I wasn't eating something or using the bathroom.
Food is definitely important. So thank you, Kat, for taking the time on this episode. I think this is really going to inspire people to come to the panels and hear all of the awesome storytelling while also getting to know you as well, since you're there every year now. If you have a chance, come to the panels. In between the panels, go up and say hello to Kat. She's so friendly. And we'll see you at ScareFest.
Bye. Thank you.